This morning I decided that I wanted to give you a familiar backdrop to the way you usually see me speaking to you here in the church auditorium. What I want to talk about today is something a little bit different, and it's how we relate to one another. So many of you have been so encouraging to me and to Velma. On a daily basis, you have sent us notes of encouragement. You have responded to these spots that I've been doing for you to encourage you, and you have told me it has, and that encourages me. This is a very important thing for you and I to do as believers in Jesus Christ. In the book of Hebrews, in chapter 10, the writer of Hebrews says this: "Let us consider how to stimulate one another to love and good deeds, not forsaking our assembling together as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near." We're commanded by God to encourage one another. What a wonderful thing. To encourage means to strengthen or comfort one another. And we should be able to do this. And it's not just the responsibility of some. It's not just my responsibility as pastor. All of us should figure out any way that we can to encourage one another. Our motive for it is quite simple. In 1 John, we find that 1 John writes this in 1 John 4:7. He said, "Beloved, let us love one another, for love is from God. And everyone who loves is born of God, and he knows God." And then down in verse 21, he says, "And this commandment we have from him, that the one who loves God should love his brother also." There's nothing you can do more loving than to encourage your brothers and sisters in Jesus Christ, in whatever way you decide. There's so many different ways in which we can encourage people, through emails or text or cards or a phone call, or just waving and talking to a neighbor. Any way that we can encourage people, help all of us get through this really difficult time. It's also interesting to me that I think that so often we wonder, but under circumstances like this, should we encourage one another? And I think back to the Psalm 118 and this wonderful verse that was written there. It says, "This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it." Have you thought about that? Let us rejoice as a people, because this is the day the Lord has made. We need to encourage one another. We need to strengthen and comfort one another. The picture that is so often used in the book of Hebrews is this: that even though life is difficult and we're going through a difficult period of time, Jesus endured the cross to encourage us. He endured the cross. He endured a much worse time than ours, just to encourage us. The motive, John says, is our love, not just for one another, but for God. And if we love God, we should love one another. And we can implement it in any single way that we want. I think it's interesting, it doesn't take a lot to encourage someone. My wife, almost every time she texts or talks to someone, even to me, but anyone in the church, she almost ends every conversation with this statement: "We are one day closer to this being over." And you know what? Many people responded to that and said, how encouraging. So I invite you, all of you, figure out a way to encourage other people. And when you do, you will be encouraged.